Welcome to Clear Close LLC. I'm your host, Steve Lachance with Integrity Mortgage, and I'm here with a great friend of mine, awesome realtor from Keller Williams Realty, the Manchester team, Patrick Matheson. Patrick, welcome.
Hey, how are you?
Good. So we jump right into this as a team that had been working together for quite a while now, several years.
Years.
And
Day one.
Yeah.
My very first transaction was with you, with the Davidsons.
It was with me?
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah. The Davidsons.
I do remember that.
Yeah.
I do remember. Was that?
And I met Bill Heath at that same transaction.
Main Choice Inspections,
Transaction, yeah.
Yeah. So these days, though, not quite like that anymore.
Right.
The market certainly shifted quite a bit. And it's always going to shift that. Everyone, that's all we've been hearing lately is how the market's different, how things have changed. And, wow, this is tough. And you and I were just talking before I started here about how the market will actually be different, you think, later this year?
And that's, a lot of people, when they say the market is this or the market is that, it's emotionally driven, I would say. It's anecdotally driven. Yeah. Like I heard from my brother that it's really hard to buy a house right now.
Yep.
So that's what everyone's going on. And then you catch those same, the same headlines on the news.
Yeah.
Where it's just 4 or 5 sentences. It's not enough information to go on.
Right.
So I actually spend a lot of time reading about this, as exciting as that sounds, but knowing what the trends are, what is happening in the economy. And I know you do too. And I think it's important to figure out as best we can, because none of us have a crystal ball, but to figure out where it's going based on that real data and real information.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite things is try to do the prediction. Everyone says, what are rates going to be this year? And look, I don't have a crystal ball. And if I did, it shattered many years ago because we're in a totally different ball game right now. But the understanding of what's going to happen helps you make good decisions too. So we do find ourselves predicting what is going to happen. We know what happens typically in Maine. The business gets a little bit busier. We see a little more inventory because sellers have held off on waiting or on listing their home until spring, which is always a mistake, especially right now. There's such a small amount of inventory where you could really capture top dollar at this time of year in the winter.
Yep.
But that said, knowing how the market's going to shift and how it's going to change will help us a lot with negotiating later too.
Right. And I don't know if you've seen this as well. Because I would say a good portion of my information comes from information that you've gathered as well. Right. And we don't always agree on where things are headed. But within the next 10 weeks or so, and that's an important number. When I was first starting out and all nervous about being a new agent and working with these agents that have 30 years in the business, or 10 years in the business, or whatever it is, Kate told me at the time that it doesn't matter how much business someone did 10 years ago. Doesn't even matter how much business they did in the last year.
Kate Manchester. Yeah.
What matters is how much business they did in the last 10 weeks, because it's a completely different market now.
That's so true.
Than it was 10 weeks ago.
It's so true.
Changed. So over the next 10 weeks, I think as far as everything I've read, seems to indicate that we're going to have a similar buying market as we did last year in 2021.
Yeah. And again, it's so hard to predict, but you bring up a brilliant point, because the reality is if you're a buyer and you've been shopping and you've been looking around, and we've seen buyers that have been shopping for a year and a half and still haven't found anything. The market has changed several times for them as well. The interest rates have gone way down. They've gone way up. Yep. And without thinking that through, you can very quickly be a buyer who's out making an offer on a property who you've been pre-approved for a year and a half, and it doesn't work.
Right. Yeah. Because everything's changed.
Everything's changed. Exactly right. So looking ahead 10 weeks from now, we're always constantly, you and I are always involved with our buyers and making sure, are they still qualified? How has this changed? Guidelines changed. Just last year, the FHA, Federal Housing Administration, changed the rules on how to calculate student loans. So we were always counting 1% of the balance, for example. I had many buyers that saw rates going up that started dropping off. I'm like, whoa, no, hold on. Now you qualify for even more. Even though rates are up a little bit, you're not pushed out of the market. We don't need to count your student loans.
Talking about this, I don't think we had a transaction where I had to think about it.
Yeah.
We talked about it, but I remember you bringing it up.
I had one with another agent recently where he had one of her buyers had $100,000 in student loan debt. And because of the changes in the guidelines, we were counting 1% of the balance back then. That's changed. Now I'm counting 0.5%.
No kidding.
So instead of $1,000 a month in someone's debt to income ratio, we're only counting 500. So that changes a lot of how much somebody will qualify for. So what's been cool is working with you is how we have that symmetry or that teamwork that we're always working with that allow us to bounce these ideas off of each other at the same time on behalf of our clients. But this all gets communicated back to them. So it's just a good, we're all rowing in the right direction, a good team.
It helps when I can talk to my clients and sound like I at least know a little bit of what I'm talking about.
I think you do. And one of the things that's great about what you do, again, we're here to jaw-jack about just the market and the conditions of it. But what's great about when you and I are working together, and I genuinely love this part about it, is you want the information from me. There are a lot of times that I'm talking to someone's realtor and the information that I'm giving is like, hey, hold on. I don't need to know all this. I don't want to know all that. Just get it done. That is really harmful to a buyer.
Yeah.
Or a seller, for that matter.
And to be clear, I want most of the information because Steve tends to talk about
the boring stuff. I get it. Yeah, I get it.
I'm more overview,
Right.
general direction of where we're headed.
Right.
So I want most of the information.
Yeah. But
The bullet points.
yeah, but it's important because we don't want to hold back bad information. So I don't know what you're negotiating right now. So you could be potentially talking about a seller fixing a septic in a well, and 5 minutes later, I'm coming back after you've nailed it. And I'm going, hey, it's falling apart because of this. And if you had known
that work, yeah.
If you had known, if we were communicating and say, okay, I can negotiate that at the same time as this, and it will all tie together nicely.
And I think that's probably that type of lack of communication between lender and realtor happens more often than not, just because anytime I'm working with another lender, not saying they're all like this, but most of the time, I'm having to call them for those conversations and having to draw them out.
Right.
Because for the most part, that lender is not used to working with a realtor that wants to know all that stuff.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think that buyers are really selling themselves short if they don't have that conversation with their buyer agent. So with yours, you're having a full conversation, learning everything you can about the situation. I'm doing the same. And then we're putting our heads together after and having a conversation. Okay, knowing all of this, are we both in agreement on all their information? I'll get them pre-approved. You now know exactly what they want.
Yeah.
But we share those two things together, and they mix together. I mean, we can get somebody into a house or talk to somebody about houses that they absolutely love. But if the loan can't get done that way, well, that's kind of pointless. And vice versa. You'd be shocked at how many times I get just realtor will send me a contract, and I'm grateful for it.
Yeah.
But I'm looking and going, this is wonderful. Main state housing, rural development on this deal.
Yep.
They don't qualify for that. Well, they did it somewhere else. So why can't? Well, it's in a different county. And so there will always be a reason. And that's nothing against that product. It's just that particular situation may not work because they're over the income limit for that area. So communication. I mean, we say it all the time.
Or a price range. Oh my goodness. Or just getting getting something from a lender saying, hey, they're pre-qualified up to $225,000.
Yeah.
Well, is that in Lewiston where the mill rate is so much higher than it is in Hollis? Where are we talking $225,000?
Right.
It's important to have that communication.
Yeah. And again, everybody always says, I'm a good communicator and all of that. That all sounds great until you actually do it. You got to prove it. And it's not being afraid to give bad news, except on a Friday. I try not to give bad news on a Friday.
That's good thinking.
Yeah. You don't want to ruin somebody's weekend, but
I forget all the things that I've learned in the past and have to relearn them.
Yeah. Well, you've probably forgotten more than what most people know too. So that's a big deal as well. Now, before we started doing this recording, you weren't super crazy about getting into this topic, but what's going on with negotiating for deals that are potentially short on appraisal? I know you're hesitant to talk about this because we are going to be in a different market shortly.
Yeah. So, it all starts with when you're looking at that house. As a buyer, when you're looking at that house, if you decide that, if you're the person that wants the house the most, then you're going to get it under contract.
Right.
And at that point, you need to have a conversation with your realtor about what happens if that appraisal comes up short.
Yep.
There's usually 3 different ways it can go. Either the seller can reduce the price. You can, as a buyer, can come up with the difference in cash, and talk to your lender about that, because there are some programs where they won't let you do that.
That is actually true in a couple of weird cases. Yes.
Okay. So either the seller can reduce the price, buyer can come up with the difference in cash. Occasionally you can go back and present irrefutable evidence that the appraiser just got it wrong.
Right.
Which the appraisers, they don't often want to hear how wrong.
It's hard to get those rebuttals
It
proved.
really, really is. That I've encountered realtors that will say, "Oh no, we do the rebuttals all the time and have success with them." I haven't seen it.
Where I've seen it is when there's a genuine flaw in the report that an appraiser can recognize and save face at the same time. So in other words, you get in. What ends up happening is you get a report, and you've seen it happen where we've had something short, and I'll say, here's, with permission from the buyer, here's a copy of the report.
Yep.
Can you find any mistakes? Like they call it a 2-bedroom when it's a 3, or they said it had no garage when there's a garage, or something that is legit that we can go back and say, this calculation is done wrong because of this.
Yeah.
It's difficult then, though, when you come back and say, well, we have other comparable sales that should have been used. Appraisers tend to dig their heels in at that point, saying, I don't like those because it's an opinion. Yeah. And they just dig their heels in every single time.
And they'll find reasons why that rebuttal doesn't mean anything.
That's right.
But again, it's really, really important to realize, as both buyers and sellers, that if that appraisal comes back short, that deal is dead at that point.
Right.
It's not going anywhere. You're not buying a house. You're not selling your house.
Right.
However, if buyers and sellers can work together a little bit at that point, then we can keep it alive. And time is always money. Yeah. It's going to be more expensive for the buyer to go out and try and find a new house and get into that. And it's going to be more expensive for the seller to try and list their property and do that. Oftentimes you're just crossing your fingers and hoping the next appraiser gives you a little bit better value for it. Obviously, if something's $75,000 short on an appraisal, then that might be worth doing. Yeah. But if we're talking a handful of thousands of dollars, then we're work together, get together on it. And most of the time it'll either be seller giving up a lot, buyer giving up a lot, but kind of meeting in the middle. Yeah.
And that's usually the case. We find some common ground in there. But I think the scariest part that I have, and I don't like it as a lender in this market, we're seeing buyers going in and making offers saying, we'll pay X amount of dollars of a shortfall on the appraisal. We're agreeing. So what you're getting is the multiple offer situation where you're competing against other offers, and the offers are getting pretty high up there. And it's getting very obvious or very likely that we'll see a shortage on that anyway, no matter how hard we try or how good the appraisal is. So those contracts are leading to so much misunderstandings from both sides of how that is going to work.
How so?
So a recent example was a contract that said we will pay $20,000 in an appraisal shortage. Okay. So the theory from a seller's side is, okay, we're covered $20,000 if this comes up short. Okay. We're still going to get our asking price. The contract prices didn't change. This buyer will make up the difference. So we like that offer over another offer, so we like it. Seller's side sees it a little bit, buyer side sees it a little differently from, okay, so if it came in $30,000 short, we only have to make up 10,000 of that, or 20,000 of that, because that's what we agreed to do. So we're going to make out 10 grand on that particular, but I wouldn't call it making out on it, but that's the seller's agreeing to drop the price to the lowest. So to exaggerate the scenario, what if it appraises for $5? Okay. Well, that means I can buy that house for $20,000, $5.
But the sellers never agreed to sell it for anything less than
the contract price. Right. They're just saying you make up that, but the language is so generic in nature that a lot of sellers are, again, I exaggerate it to drive home the point, but when it's somewhere in between or a little bit more than what the threshold was, buyers are believing that they're going to make out a little bit on it too. Right. And they're not. That means the deal's dead again.
And I'm not an attorney, but my understanding is if it's short $1, deal's dead.
Correct. That's my understanding too.
Unless me and the seller can get together and work out, all right, no, we'll make up that dollar or you'll reduce it that dollar.
And I think that's where buyers and sellers have to understand we're not real estate attorneys at this point. And certainly I don't even sign the contract. So from my perspective, I'm just helping get this, across the finish line. But that's where I'm frankly tired of having those deals because there's so much ugliness later and misunderstanding of it, especially when it comes in much further on a shortage than we were expecting.
Yeah. And I mean, are they misplacing the up to phrase,
Yeah.
Up to X dollars?
Again, I think it's still like with your team, I never have that problem. Manchester team, never an issue. I have so many other cases where it's bloody. Yeah. I mean bad, where both sides just don't get it.
It's weird. I haven't had it happen that often where we haven't been able to recover, a sale for both the buyer and the seller. We haven't been able to recover that with a short appraisal.
Yeah.
It's happened once that I can think of recently.
Yeah.
And that way it was a lot short.
Yeah.
And seller dug in their heels. My poor buyer was like, I'll make up some of the difference. Like, you got to meet me here.
It's usually dead at that point.
Yeah. And it was pretty dead. Like we kind of got no call, no show.
Yeah. I want to switch gears on you a little bit here because, and this is going to be tooting your horn a little bit, but in all the years I've been doing this, I don't know how you have been able to be such a good negotiator. I mean, I do know how, because your personality, you get along with everybody and you have that, it's like a yes mentality. But what is your secret? You're probably not going to reveal that here, but what is your secret to being such a good negotiator? Because I have never been able to see somebody get as many deals under contract as you do. When I'm looking at going, nope, that's not going to happen. Good luck with that one. And yet, Steve, here's a contract.
I definitely have left a lot of blood and carnage behind me through doing it. Because sometimes, I mean, it's hard for me not to get emotional when I'm advocating for my client.
Right.
And sometimes I get more emotional than I need to be, and I've made that mistake a bunch. Yeah. And now all of a sudden the other agent and I are not getting along, and I apologize to any that has been on.
They're not watching you right now.
I'm so sorry. Right.
They do know.
But it's really important to set everyone's expectations to begin with. I mean, when we're looking at houses and I'm going over the process of getting something under contract, how to get to closing, going through the investigation period, all of that stuff, the whole time I'm preparing my client for, there's always a little bit of give and take on it. Yeah. The important thing is that you buy a house. That's the most important thing you can do to contribute to your personal wealth is to own property. The stuff is real.
Without question. Yeah.
Nothing else you can buy is real. This is real.
Right.
That's why it's real property, real estate, and personal property.
Sure.
And that's it. So the most important thing is buying land, property, something real. Getting to that point will probably take some give, some take, and making sure we have those expectations, especially at any point. I'll revisit that when we get to something that we're negotiating about. And I've had deals get pretty close to falling apart because of a hot water heater. Yeah,
we've all seen that.
Replace it. Buyer doesn't want to replace it.
You all think it's going to be something so simple to negotiate, and we're
talking $850.
Yeah,
your house is more than likely going to make up that value very, very quickly.
Right.
Equity, what is it? It's over the last 150 years, it's 3 to 7%
at least. Yeah.
And that's not counting, real estate has,
and it's gone up, it's gone down, but on average, the slope still continues to rise, always will, just like everything else has recently. But, that sounded like a little bit of shallow flattery there, but I genuinely mean that, because one of the things that I've noticed is, even when you're selling yourself short here, because I've seen you even on the hot water heater or the appraisal that comes short, or I'm looking at it with pessimism going, good luck with being able to negotiate that. And you more often than others have been able to pull it off for your clients. And I was hoping to get the magic secret here, but I think it's you and it's your sales techniques and your communication.
We're all in the same boat.
Yeah.
It may not seem that way, but the buyer, the seller, the listing agent, myself, the lender, the title company, we're all in the same boat, just kind of rowing across that river. And sometimes the river's trying to push us down, And
you keep that going too, because that's one of the things that I've noticed, that maybe 3/4 through the transaction and you're calling me up saying, hey, have you talked to this person today? No, why? You might want to, because this is what we've been talking about. And all right, good idea. So now they understand something that might be a stress point for them, or I understand that they have something that they're stressed about. I can then jump in and say, okay, here's how that'll play out with your loan. Here's what will happen. Here's what to expect. Yep. So you eliminate that stress point for your clients too. And so I think that's a huge thing. So I love the teamwork part of it. And all the agents that I work with over the years, for me, the only real successful repeat business that we get is when it's that kind of communication.
And like I said, I've definitely made the mistake before of holding the other agent responsible for why things aren't going well. And every time
it's always the other, that was their job.
And every time I end up looking bad doing that,
right?
The best thing you can do, no matter what kind of seller or buyer or other agent you're working with, is just figure out how to get along with it.
Yeah, that's a great point too, because that happens a lot. There's a blame game all the time. We use that as an excuse. I found myself at the beginning of my career doing that, because blame it on the appraisal. It was a darn appraiser would have done this and done that. Let's just address the problem rather than do the blame game thing. That's the way the business is. So here's what I can do to make it better. Yeah. Or here's what I can do or here's the phone call I can make, or the email, or whatever.
Sue Fleck kind of taught me a lot about that very early on.
Yeah.
I would call Sue up in some kind of panic about, well, this person is doing this, or I've got an appraiser that's doing this, or a seller that's doing that. And Sue, every time I could hear her shrug on the phone and just be like, sometimes that happens.
Yeah. And people who don't know who Sue Fleck is, Sue's a terrific agent with Keller Williams Realty.
When I started out with the Manchester team. Yeah. What's your restaurant up in Naples? What is that place again?
Brothers Flecker.
That's right. It's not Brothers, isn't it? Just Brother Flecker.
Yeah, I'm going to be careful, because I am going to get edited on this one. Yes. And have you actually?
I've never eaten there.
I have. It is awesome.
What's the big place across there? Like the restaurant, kind of the 50s diner type.
Oh, it's not
feel to it.
Not Braze. I can't remember.
Yeah, anyway, I've been there. I haven't been over to.
Yeah, Sue's place is great, and you got to get the buffalo rangoons when you go there. Man, it's so good.
Cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
I don't know what kind of magic dust they sprinkle in that, but they are awesome.
No kidding.
Yep. Great food, great salads there too. They're awesome salads. So,
but having Sue approach me with that pretty early on, and just, you got to get used to rolling with the punches, and you got to prepare your clients for rolling with the punches. That an appraisal might come up short. Having a spirit of compromise and getting everyone involved in that to begin with. Not saying that if my buyers need something, then I'm going to be the biggest bulldog in the room.
Yeah.
And I will latch onto that and hold on to it until they tell me to let go.
Right.
Just Rottweiler. But the more we can kind of prepare everyone for compromising and
expectations,
expect the unexpected.
Yep. Yeah. So the shift that we're going to see coming up this year, we're going to definitely have to have you back on. We're going to talk about that a little bit more, because I think we're going to expect, do you think we're going to see an inventory change, or do you think that's going to continue for a while? Because I think that, in my opinion, is going to be around for quite some time. So
that's really the trick of it, is there's still a housing shortage of a few million units nationwide, right?
Yeah.
In Maine, it's in the thousands or tens of thousands. I forget.
Wasn't it somewhere like 20,000 homes?
I have to talk to Victoria Morales again. She gave me the numbers on it. She has a very, very good finger on that pulse. But until we're able to build, say it's 20,000, until we're able to build 20,000 new houses, it's not going to change, especially where we have a lot more people moving into the state now.
Yeah. I think we should circle back in the springtime in Maine too and talk more about this and how the inventory is doing, but also what's been going on with interest rates at the same time.
And how wrong we are about our predictions, Well,
we'll see. We're going to start taking a little wagers on this too. Maybe we should start doing that and help the housing market. Help my housing market anyway. Thank you, Patrick. Appreciate you coming on. It's great. I'm looking forward to our next session. But you're listening to Clear to Close LLC. I'm your host, Steve Lachance with Integrity Mortgage, and thanks for listening.